Welcome back. The meeting was called to order. Councilor Jack Spears was not in attendance. The first item on the agenda was Steve Farmer's request to be compensated for 96 hours of accrued leave time. This item had been tabled at the last meeting to allow City Attorney Park Medeiros to research this issue.
On any given fiscal year, parties that believe that a municipality owes them money as of June the 30th, going into the following fiscal year, they are granted a 90-day window within which to present whatever claim for money that they had that related to the prior fiscal year. In this particular case, that time frame has long since expired. It would have expired on June the 30th of the year in which Steve discontinued his employment as a police officer with the city. So it not only is not available, but it would be illegal for the council to attempt to make payment on it.
Mayor Purdy presented a request to place no parking signs on the west side of Bluff Avenue between 1st and South Streets.
The city has a rather wide easement there along Bluff Avenue, a little grassy area on the west side, and it appears that the occupants of those housing units are using that for additional parking for their area. The way that they take ingress and egress from that sign is creating some traffic concerns. Didn't have anything to do with the parking, frankly, but there was right in that same vicinity, there was a collision between vehicles a couple of weeks ago that the collision itself kind of careened off into that area that's sometimes used for that parking. It does seem to create a public safety issue, and we recommend the placement of no parking signs on that public easement area, which is basically being used for that purpose.
The next two items were discussion only concerning rezoning real property. First was a discussion to rezone 701 South Campbell Road from R1 to R1 special use to allow for a daycare. Dr. Charles Carroll explains.
This is out near the cemetery, general location. It's a sparsely populated area. Mr. Kearney lives in the vicinity, not the cemetery part, but
I'll be there for them.
Anyway, they won't put in daycare, and rather than zone it commercial, they agreed to go daycare special use, which means it can be used as a daycare instead of being able to be transferred into commercial use later on without rezoning. No one in the area appeared, protested, so unanimous vote was taken on this.
The second rezoning item was for real property located at 426 Going Snake. Veriman Davis is requesting this property be rezoned from R2 to R3 to allow for a 20-unit apartment complex.
I am Veriman Davis, the petitioner, and I would like to thank you for the opportunity to appear in front of you, the mayor, the council, and Charlie. I certainly appreciate the work that the planning and zoning has done. They have certainly aired the matter out, and at the last meeting that he alluded to, there was approximately an hour of discussion from my presentation and the people that were opposed to the application. At this time, I would like to pass, I have a handout that I would like each of the councilman and you, mayor, to have before you as I make my presentation. You've heard many, many times that a picture is worth 1,000 words. I hope this map, serving as a picture, will be worth similarly 1,000 words as it relates to the application that you will be considering. If you will pay close attention to the map, and by the way, this map was generated by staff and to my knowledge was lifted from the official planning and zoning map that is off record in the office here. So this is not something that I dreamed up. It come from your records. If each of the councilmen and you, mayor, would look, you will observe that Ash Avenue seems to be very much of a dividing line in what we commonly call rentals, R2, R3, and the area to the right or the east that being principally R1. I observed in the audience many of the people that came and spoke in protest of this application that lived in the area to the east, which were in fact R1 residents. If you will observe, everything to the left and all the way to Main Street is either R2 or R3, which permits some form of rental properties. Looking more specifically at Lot 3 and 4, which is the subject property for your consideration, you will observe that the property to the south of it is R3, the bottom of the map. You'll observe to the left, shaded in peach colored, I would say, is C1. C1 exceeds the minimum standards for R3 zoning. You can, in fact, that is a commercial zoning, and at the present times there's a commercial entity currently in business at that location. If you will look to the north in Lot 3 of Lot 27, you will also observe that there's R3 at that location. Finally, Lot 1 in Block 32 is shaded in the light yellow, but as a matter of de facto, there are 2 duplexes on that property today, which would require R3 zoning unless some special consideration was given in the past for that. So if you look at the big picture, you'll see I'm in the middle of a donut hole. Everything around me is in conformity with the request that I am making of you tonight.
I mean, everybody there is family-oriented, that's why we bought them. We like to be there for a long time. Our children go to Cherokee. And that's our biggest concern, is the traffic.
Thank you, Mr. Hall.
The street itself has no apartments on it. Rentals, yes, but no apartment building facing onto Going Snake. How can you justify beautifying Main Street and doing nothing to help Going Snake keep its character, its history? There are lots of new families, some of them are here with young children, who have bought houses and have refurbished them. They're looking nice, they'd like to raise their children there. There comes a time when a neighborhood is saturated. We don't need any more apartments. It's not fair. We were not put, I don't believe, that our neighborhood was ever voted in as the one who should employ people and supply all the apartments. If you look around town, if you read the newspaper, Tahlequah is not in need of apartments.
How do you want to lose the attraction of tourism on Going Snake? You watch people drive by and point at the houses, just amazed at how old and how well kept they are being. Tourism is a major income for Tahlequah. Do people want to come and look at apartments? No, I wouldn't go some town and look at apartments. So are you killing tourism at that end of town by surrounding Northeastern with apartments? I believe you are.
He already stated, regardless, he's going to build something there. My problem is the traffic. Also, the trash issues. We see the pretty green dumpster that's sitting right out my front window.
But just to be fair for both sides, I think my wife and I, up until last July, my wife and I owned the only residential property that they were referring to, and we lived there for more than 10 years, which is right next door to the apartment complex that's already existing that Mr. Davis owns. And just to be fair, we lived there for 10 years, and I can't think of one instance where I ever had to call the police or go over and talk to the apartment manager over noise or an unruly tenant or traffic. The traffic, it was on Ward Street, is the driveway that the current apartment complex faces. That's where the house is that we lived in. The traffic, that problem that street has no relation to that apartment complex. Like I said, I lived there for 10 years, and I've been in law enforcement for 5, and stood out in my driveway. I didn't let my kid play in the front yard either, but it had nothing to do with that apartment complex. It was because the traffic that comes off of Downing races up and down Ward Street.
I'm opposed for all of the reasons that have been mentioned. Appropriate use of the space is a prime consideration once it's inappropriately used, it's pretty permanent. I just don't believe that's an appropriate place, given the school and the historic nature and all the other saturation of rental big apartment buildings around there.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.